So you filed your taxes on time. You may even have written out a check to the IRS with all the money you owe, but now the IRS is contacting you because you're being audited. But don't worry, personal finance writer Blake Ellis is here to explain what you should do. So Blake, tell us, how does the audit process work? Does someone sort of just show up at your door telling you to pay up? What happens?
Well, when people think of audits, they do often think of someone showing up at your door or your office. But in reality, most audits are conducted by mail. So the IRS sends you a letter requesting additional information, and about 3/4 of audits are conducted this way, and the rest, so about 1/4 of audits, are actually in person, where you sit face to face with an IRS agent.
So what should you do if you're being audited?
Well, first of all, don't panic. While it might seem scary to get an audit, unless you've intentionally done something fraudulent or you're trying to slip something by the IRS, you should have nothing to be scared about. And what you should do is first take a look at that letter you get from the IRS. And if it's a letter asking you to come in for an in-person audit, look at what part of the return they're going to be focusing on, and then it may make sense for you to get help from either your tax preparer or from someone who is experienced with tax audits, like a tax lawyer. But for correspondence audits, just gather up whatever information it's asking for and send that back. But in both cases, whether it's an in-person audit or a correspondence audit, you need to respond to that letter generally within 30 days. So make sure you do that as quickly as possible.
Okay, and they're probably going to ask you for documents. What happens if you don't have the documents they're requesting?
Yeah, so I mean, ideally you should keep tax-related documents for 3 years, but if you don't have a document that you need, you can usually get a copy of it. But if you can't, for some reason, get a receipt or any documentation, then that deduction just isn't going to be allowed because you're not able to substantiate it.
And if you owe money, will you have to pay up immediately, or are there payment options?
Well, if you're lucky, you'll get a no change notice, which means you don't end up owing any extra tax. But if you do owe tax, you'll generally get a bill in the mail after the audit is finished, and you'll have about 30 days to pay. But you can contact the IRS and try to set up payment options if you're not able to pay that all up front. And that will kind of spread out the payments.
Okay, that's good news. And how likely is it that someone is going to get audited? Should most of us be worried about this, or not really?
Well, it's a good question, because people are very scared about the idea of getting an audit, but in reality, the chances of being audited are really low. According to the IRS, people have about a 1% chance of being audited. And those odds definitely go up the more income you have, or if you're a small business owner, or if you take certain deductions like the home office deduction. But overall, your chances of being audited are pretty slim.